And before this video begins, I'd just like to give a special thank you to my Asban Team level patron, Fallon Cortez. Thank you for supporting the channel. Well, it's been a while, and trust me, I've seen your many comments about when I'm going to review Doctor Who Series 10. But hey, at least you didn't have to wait as long as it took us all back in the day when they took a whole year off. Doctor Who Series 10 was a big relaunch of the show, designed as a new jumping on point for fans, despite it being right at the end of Stephen Moffat's tenure and Peter Capaldi's time as the Doctor. Fittingly, the first episode of this series is called The Pilot, a clever double entendre not only indicating the soft relaunch approach, like the pilot of a new show, but also because of the terrifying water-based villain of the story. The pilot sees the now Earth-based 12th Doctor and Nardole meet quirky university canteen worker Bill Potts, who has a very clingy girlfriend. The pilot is a very well-respected episode of Doctor Who, usually finding itself doing pretty decently on lists and being considered one of the best companion introductions of the entire show. But is it truly a good starting point, and more importantly, does it get the good old Harbo stamp of approval? Well, as always, that's what I'm here to find out. So, without any further ado, let's get ready to start our last ride.
Will you all please just leave me alone? I can't do that anymore, I promised!
Right from the beginning of the pilot, it's clear that Bill Potts is the main focus of the story, entering the Doctor's office and cementing herself as an audience surrogate of sorts, the viewer's window into this wild and strange world. It's a similar tactic that has worked so well before with characters like Rose and Martha, having them as the main character instead of the Doctor, so they can learn everything at their own pace and ask all the right questions. I've personally never really been too fussed with Bill. She's never struck me as the grounded, normal person a lot of people consider her as. She has that typical Moffat-y, poetic, fluffy dialogue that doesn't really feel like how actual people talk.
This is always doing expressions when I'm trying to be enigmatic.
However, the pilot is definitely one of Bill's stronger outings, and it's a great introduction to this new character. I love her initial meeting with the Doctor, the pair quickly trading questions in a very snappy sequence. It's a really clever, punchy way to deliver a lot of important exposition, quickly introducing us to the idea that Bill is sneaking into the Doctor's lectures, what the blue police box is, the mystery of who the Doctor is, and lastly ending with Bill making enough of an impression for the Doctor to take her on as a personal student so she can fulfill her dreams of studying at the uni. It's honestly so well done, and Moffat did a fantastic job with this scene. It's such a great first impression for the episode that sets out everything you need to know. It's perfect for what it needs to be. It's a very interesting idea to ground the 12th Doctor as this enigmatic university professor. It makes him a fixture of this location, someone for the storyline to swirl around because he himself is a plot, due to how mysterious he is and how much he stands out. Obviously, if you've watched pretty much any video I've ever made, you'll know the 12th Doctor is my favourite incarnation, and the pilot is another excellent showcase for him.
Go be a proper student. Text, snogging, a vegan rap.
By this point, Capaldi has really perfected the role and fine-tuned his performance, and it shows in this episode. The 12th Doctor is full of his signature gravitas, wit and wisdom as he lectures, but he also has a sense of melancholy, keeping pictures of Susan and River as reminders of his past and giving him a sense of morality. So it's a great balance of the core aspects of the character.
Shut up. You shut up as well.
This evolution of the 12th Doctor is really strong, obviously featuring the unpredictable charm that defines him, but being settled at this university also shines a light on his more introspective and quieter side. In Series 8, 12 was a bit like a mentor figure to Clara, but in Series 10, he quite literally becomes a mentor for Bill, since he's her tutor, a unique way to kickstart a Doctor-companion relationship because of how normally it begins. I love the montage of their time together over the course of the year, even having a little Christmas together. It's a great way to show how their relationship is developing and changing as they grow more familiar with each other. This isn't like most companions who are thrown into the Doctor's world out of nowhere and get whisked away. They already have a developed relationship with one another, and I find that really interesting as a dynamic. It also allows us to see a more tender, protective side of the Doctor without any alien threats or a need to save the world. I really adore the moment where Bill mentions her mother died when she was young and she doesn't have many pictures. So the Doctor goes back in time and takes a bunch for her Christmas present. Just a really sweet and warm act, which also serves as a smart way to introduce the ability to time travel. Not a moment is wasted in this first act. Every single moment serves so many purposes and establishes so much. It's just brilliant.
I'm very particular about time.
There's so much humanity baked into the pilot. Obviously, there's the fresh perspective of new companion Bill Potts, with an endearing sense of curiosity and sense of wonder as she encounters all these strange things and navigates this new world. She asks all the questions she needs to and perfectly personifies the viewers. There's also her natural chemistry with the Doctor, which brings such a warmth and light-hearted vibe to the episode.
Is this a knock-through?
Well, in a way, yes.
Their banter feels very fresh and snappy, with lots of great humour and levity. Bill is a very typical Moffat companion in that regard, always wrong-footing the Doctor by saying things he doesn't expect or making him consider new perspectives about things he's genuinely never thought about before, like the TARDIS seats being too far from the console. It's clear from a very early point that Bill is perfectly suited for the role of a companion. She's such a great and natural contrast to the Doctor's own personality. But the core human story of the pilot is one of love, as Bill meets and falls for the melancholic Life is Strange protagonist Heather, a girl with a star in her eye. It's a very traditional girl meets girl love story with a Doctor Who twist, balancing the fantastical with very real human emotions. The way Bill interacts with both the Doctor and Heather says a lot about her character depth and establishes so much about her in a great personal story I'll get to in a little bit. Every Doctor Who episode needs a mystery or a threat, and we get exactly that with a mysterious puddle in a random back alley. I love this setup, Heather showing Bill this strange, impossible puddle that stays in the exact same place even during the height of summer. One of the best things Doctor Who does is taking the mundane and transforming it into something eerie and extraordinary. From shop window dummies and statues to graffiti and cubes, Doctor Who has always excelled with this kind of simple setup, and this puddle is no different. Like Bill points out, there's something wrong when you look in this puddle, and I love how the Doctor instantly snaps into action mode, because he's given a mystery to solve. The Doctor is a character who hates being stuck in one place for too long, so obviously he'd immediately jump at the chance to investigate anything. It's great how quickly he works out the puddle isn't reflecting people's faces, it's mimicking them, because Heather's starry eye made her face asymmetrical. It's a really chilling revelation. The episode gives you such a feeling of dread when the Doctor mentions this mimicking from something that seems so normal, and you know it's serious when he suddenly switches to try and downplay it, shooing away Bill and telling her there's nothing to worry about. Because when the Doctor says there's nothing to worry about, you immediately know there is something to worry about. And boom, just like that, you're sucked in. The episode perfectly snaps into Doctor Who mode with this scene, and it never looks back. I love it.
There's something in the water pretending to be you.
One of my favourite things about the pilot is how it borders on horror with some fantastic visuals and sinister moments. We get that fantastic sequence when Bill arrives at what should be her empty home, but the shower is running, leading to a really tense build-up, including a creepy shadowy figure in the shower, like something out of a horror movie. And then there's nothing, which is such a terrifying moment, especially with Heather's iconic eyes staring up from the drape. The pilot is a gorgeously shot and directed episode by Lawrence Goh. He gives the episode such a sleek, cinematic feel with a lot of striking visuals, adding such a great atmosphere to the narrative. My favourite is that scene of Bill seeing Heather in the mist, just this really horrifying, bone-chilling sight that could easily fit into any horror movie. Heather just immediately looks otherworldly and wrong, with the water infinitely pouring out of her, similarly to the flood zombies in Waters of Mars, a drenched and pale spectre in the night. It's such powerful visual storytelling. I also love the age-old voice repetition horror as Heather imitates Bill, further creating this rich horror atmosphere and proving without a doubt that Heather is dead, or at least lost for good. And now Bill is in danger and can't escape, which is the driving force for the rest of the narrative as the characters try desperately to escape this relentless, unstoppable entity. Because as we learned in Waters of Mars, water always wins. This pursuit of the main characters is also the perfect excuse to introduce us to the TARDIS, which can take the Doctor and Bill anywhere in time and space. A companion's first entrance into the TARDIS is always a staple of these episodes, something fans eagerly anticipate, and I think Pearl Mackie and Peter Capaldi combine so well to make this scene really pop. There's that great shot as the camera pulls out, turning the dark, claustrophobic box into a bright, warm, and impossibly open room. A really clever and fresh way to show the TARDIS being bigger on the inside, rather than the usual just running around the outside.
Is it my imagination? Or is this taking longer than normal?
I appreciate that the episode knows exactly when to slow down for these important character-driven moments. It doesn't feel like running into a brick wall when the exciting escape ends so suddenly. It instead feels like a natural and smooth transition into a brand new twist for the narrative. Bill essentially goes from one weird thing to another even weirder thing, and it's really well handled. The episode gets this pacing spot on in my opinion, really balancing those high-stakes sci-fi action scenes and quieter character-building ones, with effortless transitions every time. So the episode ends up feeling a lot shorter than it actually is, but in the best way possible. Like I mentioned, the nature of the villain as an impossibly persistent entity capable of following the protagonist everywhere is the perfect vehicle for showing what the TARDIS is capable of. First, we have the short hop to Sydney, since the Opera House is apparently the only thing to exist on that godforsaken continent. This is obviously a good way to show the space hopping ability, just casually slipping to the other side of the world at the exact same moment they left. But after Heather follows them there, we also get to see the time travel too, with the protagonist appearing on a beautifully disguised quarry on the other side of the universe a million years in the future. Again, not a moment of this episode is wasted. It introduces everything you need to know and in such a smooth way that actually propels the plot forward. So take note, Series 14. Immediately after finding out this is a time machine, we're also told exactly what this puddle entity is. Sentient space oil that ate Heather to be a pilot and now wants to be with Bill. Every scene is so well written and packed full of necessary explanations, whilst still managing to fit in all the banter we want and expect from the main characters, along with Nardole being the ideal comic relief and foil for the Doctor and Bill.
Can I say no, sir? No. Yes then.
Thank you.
Yes, I haven't found the right opportunity so far to talk about Nardole, the Doctor's cyborg assistant, who appeared in both the bridging specials between Series 9 and Series 10. Nardole is fantastic again here, with a lot of great one-liners and sassy remarks, since he's almost like a nanny looking after the Doctor and keeping him under control as he guards the mysterious vault.
Oh, banter. Oh, it's good this. Here we go again.
Capaldi and Matt Lucas have such brilliant comedic timing and chemistry. They're the ideal odd couple for the episode, and it works so well to develop the characters of all three leads. I almost feel like Nardole is the opposite of Bill in this episode, where Bill is this audience surrogate representing all the new viewers who have all these questions and are seeing this world for the first time. Nardole is like the existing fan already familiar with Doctor Who and almost protective of it because it's his thing, and Bill is an outsider he's a bit jealous of.
Oh, human. Human alert. Do you want me to repel her?
It's a really fun dynamic, especially when Nardole celebrates Bill finally saying the iconic bigger on the inside catchphrase. A great nod to it being a trope whilst not feeling too meta or out of place, because that's just the kind of dynamic Nardole and the 12th Doctor have already. So it's a nice nod to the fans and to the history of the show. Nardole is fantastic in Series 10 in general, but the pilot is honestly the ideal reintroduction to his character. He fits into the dynamic so effortlessly. I really couldn't imagine this episode without him arguing and bantering with the Doctor and warming to Bill, along with being the passive-aggressive, reluctant third wheel along for the ride, whilst insisting everyone should stop being so silly. Naturally, with the nature of this extremely clingy girlfriend villain, the Doctor decides to take it through the deadliest fire in the universe. which manifests as a very classic Doctor Who corridor. Gotta love some tradition. This set is a really simple but effective one. It's a great sci-fi war zone, and even the Movellans look good in their first appearance since the 1970s. Yeah, so in an episode designed as a big, new viewer-friendly relaunch, there are a lot of callbacks and references, like different sonic screwdrivers, the pictures of Susan and River Song, and all sorts of lines and other subtle callbacks. The most notable of these references is, of course, the Dalek-Movellan War introduced in Destiny of the Daleks, which is a pretty deep cut for an episode like this, but it's a good little action piece that also showcases the wider universe of Doctor Who, how there's so much going on away from Earth and Bill has had no idea. It's also a clever way to introduce the Daleks, who don't appear for the rest of the series. It shows how deadly they are, mentioning how familiar the Doctor and Nardole are with them, but it doesn't bog itself down by having to explain all the moving parts like them being hate-filled mutants in shells. As the Doctor simply says, they're just Daleks. It's all you really need to know at this point so early on. The whole scene serves as a suitable climactic action set piece, and if you're a believer in the Dalek contract conspiracy, a smart way to fulfill that arbitrary yearly obligation to feature the monsters. I love the moment as the Dalek faces off with Heather trying to kill her, only for the attacks to be completely absorbed and ineffective. It's a fantastic way to further emphasize how unstoppable this entity is, able to easily shrug off even the highly efficient and deadly Dalek's weapon system. And then there's that great visual of the water pouring out of the Dalek casing, revealing that Heather has replicated the iconic foe, now leading to a sublime standoff between the Doctor and the villain as he threatens the entity if it harms Bill, further proof of his increasingly more protective nature. And it's then that we find out why Heather has been so relentlessly following Bill, because she promised she wouldn't leave without her, revealing the villain's nature as a misunderstood monster rather than some consciously sinister creature. Well, apart from the fact it stole a random girl and killed her. We'll just ignore that. I love the bittersweet music here, driving home the tragic nature of this relationship. Throughout the episode, there's been this romantic undercurrent making everything feel that much more personal and grounded. Because, like I mentioned, this is just a love story at the end of the day. A sad but poignant love story with a lot of depth and heart. I adore how Bill uses Heather's imitations to have a conversation with her, imploring Heather to let go and move on, which is paid off so well in that beautiful scene within a swirling vortex as Heather finally agrees to let go, without just repeating Bill's own words back to her this time. I find Heather's story really tragic because she did genuinely die. Her body was stolen by the sentient oil puddle and her life was cut short, all because she felt like she didn't belong and wanted to get away. It's just a really sad and haunting layer for the episode with real emotional weight. This unresolved romance ending with one of the most touching lines in the series as Nardole notices Bill's tears and she simply says,
I don't think they're mine.
After all the chaos and emotion, we get a nice epilogue with the characters reflecting on the adventure and Bill wishing to go on more, only for the Doctor to refuse because it's too dangerous for both her and the vault he's trying to protect. Remember, due to the Doctor losing his memories of Clara, the last TV companions he remembers are the Ponds, who died because of their travels with him, so he doesn't want to put Bill in the same danger. And of course, he's desperately trying to keep himself locked down to one place to protect the vault, so he instead decides he has no choice but to wipe Bill's memory of this whole weird day as a way to protect her. I love this scene so much, it's emotional on so many levels, and it's like a commentary on previous situations like Donna's mind wipe, where the Doctor did it to save her life, at the cost of her character development and growth, because everything she saw and achieved was lost against her will. Of course, Hellbent saw the purposeful reverse of that, as the Doctor was the one to lose his memories. But the pilot makes sure to double down on this, as Bill desperately pleads with him to let her remember, if only for the night, because it's the most interesting thing to ever happen to her. Again, the music here is great, and it's a way to further drive home the humanity of the episode. However, by far my favourite moment is when Bill accepts it, only to tell the Doctor to imagine if someone was to do this to him. A clear reference to Hellbent solidified with that brief refrain of Clara's theme in the background, with the Doctor's face alone saying 1,000 things. Unlike with Donna, he does now know what it feels like to be on the other side of this, to lose so much and always know there's something missing, without ever being able to work out what used to be there. The Doctor and Clara's memory wipe scene will always be one of my favourite, most heartbreaking companion departures in the entire show, and I definitely don't say that because I'm biased. So I love that we get to see how much of an impact it continues to have on the Doctor and his decisions afterwards, because it prompts him to spare Bill here, not wanting to put her through that same torment and loss of self he himself has recently gone through. Because, as we found out in Hellbent, he knows he lost his memory of Clara. He knows they travelled together, but he doesn't remember who she was or what she looked like. There's just a hole left in his mind. And Clara's final words to him in that episode, without him realising it was her, were about how memories become songs when we forget them. Hence, her leitmotif playing during this scene with Bill, because he's remembering Clara, or at least the little we can remember about her. It's a great way to continue evolving the Doctor's character, especially when he argues with his memories of Susan, River Song, and the TARDIS sitting right next to him. Because Susan and River represent that wandering adventure spirit within him, begging him to take Bill to see the universe, whilst the TARDIS itself also wants to travel with her because it already likes Bill. It's a nice scene showing his outer shell crack as he accepts the idea of returning to his old ways, inviting Bill into the universe because
It means... what the hell?
it's such a nice way to wrap the story up and mark this entire new beginning. The pilot is definitely an episode that has grown on me over the years. I used to be not too fussed with it, but I've really come to appreciate it a lot, and it's a great way to softly relaunch Doctor Who and serve as a jumping on point. Of course, there are a lot of references and continuity to past stories, but they're not relied upon, and new viewers aren't overwhelmed with lore. It's just sprinkled throughout, mainly for existing fans to pick up on. The episode is incredibly clever with how it paces itself and balances things, never wasting a moment and cramming every scene with so much necessary information without ever feeling too busy or bogged down with introductions and explanations. I think Bill is introduced well, a companion with lots of potential for growth because of her natural curiosity, intelligence, and emotions, making her a natural fit for the Doctor. Of course, I don't like some of her dialogue, some of her poetic quotes don't feel like how a real person would talk, especially not with how grounded and normal Bill was meant to be compared to Clara before her. Even so, Bill's dynamic and banter with the Doctor and Nardole is fantastic, filling the episode with humour and heartwarming moments, creating a really fun and accessible tone for the first outing. I appreciate how the Doctor and Bill are established differently to most other pairings, since they're already close and trust one another because he's her tutor. They're not complete strangers thrown into a crisis, so when the weird stuff happens, the story can be summed up as, my tutor is an alien. Heather is a really imposing villain with her relentless nature and so many cinematic chilling visuals, but her misunderstood nature adds so much emotional resonance to the story with a very bittersweet narrative. Oh, and just in case anyone in the comments thought they were being clever pointing something out, it actually is just a coincidence that Bill and Heather's names match William and Heather Hartnell. It's one hell of a coincidence, but it's a coincidence all the same. Overall, I would give the pilot an A rank on the Series 10 tier list. It's a very solid introductory episode that perfectly sets up everything it needs to with ease, and it also establishes the series arc of The Vault, which is teased throughout the episode. The pilot is one of the best companion introductions and series openers, setting a benchmark that only a couple of Series 10 episodes can actually match or exceed. But that's all for now. I hope you enjoyed this video, thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. And I'd just like to give an extra special thank you to my Asbantium level patron Fallon Cortez, my Platinum level patron Matthew Burns, and all my Gold level patrons, Chris Douglas, Daniel Shillito, and the 3 Railway Engines. Thank you so much for your support.